At first, she paid no mind to them. Sirens were a common sound in her neighborhood, too common. But the screeching of tires and the sudden flood of red and blue lights made her stop in her tracks. A police cruiser swung around the corner at full speed and came to a screeching halt right in front of her. "Hey, stop right there." She turned to see a white police officer, tall and broad, stepping out of the car. His name tag read Officer Darren Cole. He had a hand on his holster, his stance aggressive. Confusion flickered across Gloria's face. "Is there a problem, officer?" "We got a call that a suspect matching your description involved in a theft." Gloria's heart skipped a beat. "A theft?" "Officer, I just came from the store. I have my receipt right here." She moved to pull it from her bag, but before she could reach for it, Officer Cole lunged forward. "Don't move," he barked, grabbing her wrist and twisting it behind her back. The bag tumbled to the ground, apples rolling across the pavement. "Wait, what are you doing?" she cried, her voice laced with panic. "Stop resisting." "I am not." But her words were cut short as he forced her down onto the sidewalk, her face pressed against the rough pavement. She felt the weight of his knee on her back, then on her neck. She gasped, "I can't." He didn't listen. She clawed at the ground, her breath fading, the lights above her blurring. The world was slipping away, and the last thought that crossed her mind was of Elijah, her baby boy. She never got to say goodbye. Elijah was in a conference room when the call came. He had just closed a deal worth tens of millions, shaking hands with executives when his assistant rushed in, her face pale. "Elijah," she whispered, "it's your mother." The world around him faded. He never could have imagined that this would be the moment his life changed forever. Elijah stood frozen as his assistant whispered the words that shattered his world. "Your mother, she's gone." For a moment, he couldn't process it. His mind rejected the very idea. He had spoken to her just that morning. She had told him about her day, about the fresh peaches she had bought from the market, about how she had watched a rerun of his first ever television interview and how proud she was of him. Now, she was just gone. The details came in pieces. A police officer, a false accusation, a knee on her neck. No charges, just a tragic misunderstanding. Elijah's hands clenched into fists, his entire body trembling with a rage he had never felt before. He had faced racism all his life, had been doubted, dismissed, and disrespected. But he had always fought back by proving them wrong. He had built his empire despite their expectations. But this was different. He wasn't going to let them bury this under the usual excuses. He wasn't going to let his mother become just another statistic. He was going to burn their world to the ground. The press conference was called within 24 hours. Elijah, dressed in an all-black suit, stood in front of dozens of cameras. His jaw was tight, his eyes cold. "My mother, Gloria Thompson, was murdered in cold blood by Officer Darren Cole," he began, his voice cutting through the silence. "They want you to believe it was an accident, that he made a mistake, that she resisted. But I've seen the footage. My mother was unarmed. She was innocent. And yet, that officer treated her like she was nothing, like her life didn't matter." He let the silence hang before speaking again. "My mother raised me to believe in justice. But what justice exists for people who look like us? How many more mothers have to die before something changes?" He paused. The cameras were rolling. The world was watching. "So, let me make something very clear to the mayor, the police chief, And every single person who thinks they can get away with this, you just killed the wrong woman. Elijah had power. Not just money, but influence. He had friends in politics, in law, in media. He knew exactly how to play this game. Within hours, justice for Gloria was trending worldwide. Celebrities, activists, and even politicians called for Officer Cole's arrest. But Elijah didn't trust the system to do the right thing. He knew it had to be forced. His lawyers tore through every loophole. They dug up every complaint ever filed against Officer Cole. They pulled body cam footage from other cases. The media uncovered stories of excessive force, of racial profiling, of cover-ups. The mayor's office was in full-blown crisis mode. The police department scrambled to contain the fire. But it was too late. Elijah had set the match, and now the whole city was burning. Officer Darren Cole's home address was leaked online. Protesters surrounded his house, chanting his name, demanding justice. His wife and kids were forced to flee. He was suspended, then fired. But Elijah wasn't satisfied with that. He wanted Cole in handcuffs. He wanted him to feel the weight of the law, the way his mother had felt his knee. When the DA refused to press charges, Elijah made a phone call. Not to a lawyer, not to a politician, but to every journalist in his contacts. The footage of Cole kneeling on Gloria's neck played on every major news network. The public outcry became impossible to ignore. The DA caved. Officer Cole was arrested. The trial was a spectacle. The defense tried every excuse. She was resisting. He feared for his life. It was just protocol. Elijah sat in the courtroom every day, his face unreadable. He listened as they tried to smear his mother, as they twisted the truth. But the world was watching. And when the jury returned, the verdict was clear. Guilty. A cheer erupted outside the courthouse. Elijah didn't celebrate. He just closed his eyes, exhaled, and whispered. Elijah didn't stop there. He poured millions into police reform, funded independent oversight committees, built scholarships in his mother's name. He made sure Officer Cole would never be forgotten, not as a man. He wasn't just seeking justice anymore. He was building a legacy. Because Gloria Thompson was more than a victim. She was a mother, a fighter, a woman who deserved to be remembered for the life she lived, not just the way she died. And Elijah would make sure of that. Forever.